The village idiot Donald Trump is on his way home from his Middle East bribery trip. I'm really happy he was able to go to the Middle East and collect all his due rewards. I guess U.S. policy in the Middle East will be dictated now by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, at least for the next almost 4 years. The only other thing, or I guess the only thing that is disappointing about this trip, because the corruption is just inspiring, is that he's coming home. You know, it was nice, wasn't it, that he wasn't here for a week. The energy in the country was better. But, yeah, all right, let's get back to our regularly scheduled madness.
Yesterday, the Supreme Court heard opening arguments for birthright citizenship. President Trump took to social media, and this is what he wrote. The big case today in the United States Supreme Court: birthright citizenship was not meant for people to take vacation to become permanent citizens of the United States of America and bring their families with them all the time, laughing at the suckers that we are. The United States of America is the only country that allows people to give birth in the United States regardless of the parents' legal status. Once the children is born on U.S. soil, they automatically become citizens. And it has become a lucrative business. Just listen to this lawyer.
Yes, there is a birth tourism industry.
There is.
Where people will pay to come to our shores in their 7th or 8th month of pregnancy, when it's still relatively safe to travel, and they will then stay in hospitals until they give birth, and they will go back into their countries. And there are certainly evidence out there that there are some countries, surprised me if it was China, that are in fact sending people here to give birth so that at some point they can take those children who have been living back in China for many, many years and bring them back to the United States, and then claim that that the people that are coming back to the United States are in fact U.S. citizens by dint of the fact that they were born on our shores. I believe it is exactly abuses like that, among many, that led President Trump to enter the executive order that he did.
And that is the reason why President Trump issued that executive order. But don't take my word for it. The only person that I found yesterday that sums up what happened perfectly is this PBS reporter. Listen in.
But the discussion centered around the reach of federal judges, specifically the 3 federal judges who have blocked President Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. Since Trump began his second term, there have been nearly 40 nationwide injunctions targeting his policies. But it's not a partisan thing. The same thing happened to Joe Biden's initiatives on the environment and on student loan debt, and to DACA under Barack Obama. As Justice Kagan said today, the result is what's referred to as jurisdiction shopping. During the first Trump term, opponents of his policies went to file lawsuits in California, while during Biden's presidency, his opponents went to Texas to file court suits. Now, why do these injunctions matter? These orders, issued by judges in a specific jurisdiction, effectively halt White House policy while the case works its way through the courts. That's one of the concerns that justices were grappling with on Thursday, while also examining the ban on birthright citizenship, which Trump did with an executive order within hours of taking the oath of office in January. The lawyers opposing the president offered 2 compromise solutions: allow nationwide injunctions when fundamental rights are at stake, or ask for additional arguments so that the justices may decide with finality the constitutionality of Trump's order. The question one of the lawyers called the elephant in the room.
So to sum this all up, it's only the beginning. More to come.
Major breaking news as Trump's big, beautiful bill could not even get out of the House Budget Committee. It was voted down. 5 Republicans voted against it, and it's a major setback now for Trump and his big, beautiful bill. But let's just be honest, this bill had cuts to Medicaid. It had all sorts of cuts that were just really unpopular and going to deeply affect a lot of the constituents that some of these Republicans represent, and they just can't go along with that. The vote was 16 lawmakers in favor and 21 against this bill. So back to the drawing board. They got to come up with something better that actually serves the American people. One of the major complaints by these Republican holdouts is that the majority of the savings in this bill don't take effect until Trump is out of office. Trump had tried to put pressure on these lawmakers earlier in the day by posting, "We don't need grandstanders" in the Republican Party. That didn't seem to work very well. Now, the House Freedom Caucus has said they're going to continue working on this throughout the weekend, and the committee will reconvene on Monday. So we'll see if they can get a different result by then. But right now, this bill is dead. For any chance of this bill advancing, it has to deal with the tax cuts and Medicaid cuts that they've proposed that are widely unpopular and they've been plowing ahead with. They have to address that. It's just widely unpopular, and the American people are not going to stand for it. Let me know what you think about this. Comment, like, share, spread the word, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
Donald Trump is scared by seashells arranged on the beach. It enters his nightmares. He thinks it's a cry to have him murdered or assassinated. At least that's what he wants the American people to think, as he comes up with yet another distracting story to take away from his failed overseas trip, where he was selling America to the highest bidder, looking past human rights violations in all those Arab countries, embroiled in a $400 million bribe scandal. And what keeps him up at night? Seashells arranged on a beach in a First Amendment expression, a little cheeky one at that we should get rid of Donald Trump. It was stumbled across by James Comey. Remember him? He was the FBI director. But he was also the person probably single-handedly responsible, besides with Hillary Clinton, her own campaign, with making sure that Hillary Clinton would not be elected president when he opened up an email investigation just weeks before the election. That James Comey. So James Comey, who...
Between China's leaders and our leaders, they are ripping us. We are rebuilding China. We're rebuilding many countries. China, you go there now, roads, bridges, schools, you never saw anything like it. They have bridges that make the George Washington Bridge look like small potatoes.
Well, that's because China invests in their infrastructure and their people, and we invest our money into the industrial military complex, which doesn't build all of these beautiful things you're talking about. Yeah, China spends about a fourth on defense of what we spend. Yeah. And shocker, raising tariffs on China and all these other countries to extract more revenue from the American people is not going to change that, because you're just going to take that revenue and you're either going to set it on fire in the defense budget, or you're going to set it on fire with tax cuts for the rich. And it won't equate to a single bridge or building or any of the amazing things that you were talking about that China does. And for years during your first administration, we listened to you say, 2 more weeks, we'll have an infrastructure bill in 2 more weeks. And of course, it never came, just like everything else that was going to be 2 more weeks. And then we passed a massive infrastructure bill under the Biden administration, and now you're back and doing everything you can to dismantle it and tear it down and take it apart. So you can give more people tax cuts, or you can, burn it on military spending and defense, or whatever it is you're going to waste this money on. It's certainly not going to be spent on infrastructure, the very thing that you are crowing about China having. And by the way, it has nothing to do with tariffs. What China has nothing to do with tariffs. And you go on and on about how smart Chinese leaders are and how dumb American leaders are. And you're right about that, but you're not considering the fact that you're one of the dumb American leaders. China isn't wasting all of their money on the things we waste money on. China isn't running up enormous, like a $36 trillion deficit. Because they spend their money wisely and have nicer things than we do, you want to punish them. You're not any smarter than any of the other leaders we've had in Washington, D.C. that have basically just set our money on fire. You're not. You literally prove it in this speech where you know nothing about why we don't have infrastructure. You think it has something to do with tariffs. How much money that we collect on tariffs, which, by the way, is just taking money out of the Americans' pockets and putting it in the government's pockets, how much of that money are you going to spend on infrastructure? None. So don't talk to me about what China has, because you have no interest in ensuring we actually have those things too. Yeah, thanks.
So Syphilitic Sid is just out here in the world. You know, he's just loose out here in the world. And I don't know if y'all watched that snippet of him speaking, blaming Biden for everything. Even though he's the president, he's been the president for 100+ days. And we all heard him say, anything that's good is him. If it's bad, it's Biden. But, you know, whatever. I'm just curious, though. Those of you who voted for him, right, and are happy with the way things are going, I just want to understand how y'all feel knowing that other world leaders think he's a toddler and have said so very publicly. That dealing with him is like dealing with a spoiled child. And I am really trying to figure out, is it an act? Or is he really just a big 78-year-old child? I personally think he's got, Alzheimer's, maybe, dementia. I know that definitely he sundowns. I've seen it. And a lot of those events, he's clearly sundowning. Clearly. But hey, this is what we're dealing with. I think it's hilarious. It's terrifying. And to think that we still have, 3.75 years of his ramblings and dementia. But hey, he's still deporting brown people. That's all that matters. Yay, MAGA. Not really. That's sarcasm. Because y'all don't get to... Anyway.
Keep your eye on the prize. Don't get caught up in the razzle dazzle. You know, Kristi Noem with her fucking Hunger Games bullshit. That's to hide the fact that she's trying to get the government to buy her another Gulfstream 5. You know, one of the cheapest private aircraft you can ever buy. For her personal use. The jet from Trump, God, there are like 50 fucking things that's trying to distract you from selling off of public lands, trying to derail fucking Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, any one of a number of things with that fucking clown. You know, Stephen Miller only comes out of his coffin with dirt from his homeland in to spew some racist ass bullshit, some eugenicist ass bullshit, and then he disappears back into his fucking cave. Could you imagine being that man's wife? Like, what kind of a monster marries Goebbels' fucking doppelganger? Anyway, don't get caught up in the razzle-dazzle. They're trying to hide shit behind the curtain. You know, just keep your eye on the prize. Recommend using independent news sources, Midas Touch, Ground News. I go with RFE-RL, Radio Free Europe, and Radio Liberty as well, but sometimes, you know, that's nominally under shitface's control. But, you know, find yourself a reputable independent news source, somebody who has no agenda, somebody who, if they have an agenda, it's to get you unbiased, truthful reporting in what's going on behind the scenes. I get like Katie Halper I like, Tom Hartman I like, Tom with an H. Of course, I'm going to draw a fucking blank now. The Mueller, She Wrote podcast and the whole MSW network, especially Fridays when they've got John Fugel saying he is bound to be the funniest Catholic I've ever met. Well, I've never met him, but funniest Catholic I've ever encountered in my life. But don't let them throw glitter in your eyes, man. They're you know that when they're throwing something out like a $400 million plane from the country that funds Hamas with billions of fucking dollars, While on the flip side, oh, it's real, oh, it's real, oh, it's real. Well, you're supporting the people that are, made Hamas and fund it. But if a $400 million jet from them gets thrown out there more or less publicly, imagine what they're fucking doing in private. Imagine all the fuck-witted twattery that they're getting up to in private.
Has sort of seen the light and has written books and suggested he's not such a bad guy after all. He was walking the beach and came across some seashells arranged on the beach. Nobody's accusing this 6'5" guy, senior citizen, of taking shells and arranging them on the beach in a formation that spelled out 8647. But to Donald Trump, to Don Jr., to Christine Noem, to Kash Patel, to the head of the Secret Service, we need to investigate this call for an assassination of Donald Trump. Get a grip. Get a grip. Or as J.D. Vance has said in the past, when did we become such humorless Americans? I'm not humorless. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. Let's get to Seashell Gate. I never thought I'd have to put that sentence together, but I did. So here's what happened. James Comey, former FBI director, walking down the beach one day. Sounds like a joke I'm about to start. And a rabbi, a priest, and all right, you know where I'm going. And he stumbles across this thing where somebody has spelled out in seashells 8647. Now look, I worked in restaurants as a kid. I worked in diners as a kid in New Jersey. Shout out to New Jersey. I'm going to do a New Jersey aspect of this with Bruce Springsteen before this clip is over, about First Amendment expression. But let's stay on Comey for a minute. I'll compare the two things. Comey sees shells. I worked in restaurants. 86 means stop selling. We're out of it. Get rid of it off the menu. Like 86, the corned beef hash. We're done. 86, the pumpernickel bagels. We don't have any more. Like that. Now, in urban dictionaries, are there various definitions of 86 to mean assassinate? I think that's a stretch. I think it means get rid of. That is the common parlance. If you ask the average Joe on the street, that they would say, what does 86 mean as a number? And 47, all right, probably is a reference to Donald Trump. Do I think it's the last four digits?
Trump's administration's cancellation of internet access grants will cost Southwest and Southside Virginia, officials say. President Donald Trump called the Digital Equity Act that we are discussing here racist, unconstitutional, and a woke handout. A former Biden administration official who helped lead the program it created said it would have benefited mostly white residents. We need people to understand that the word equity and diversity is not a substitute for minority, okay? This is a program that specifically benefited the lowest income population, our poverty population. It benefited veterans, it benefited seniors, and it benefited white rural Virginians significantly. Virginia was one of the first states to apply for the federal funding for this act so that they could expand access. And People Inc. of Virginia used $55,000 in federal money and worked with multiple Southwest Virginia nonprofits to create a plan that would help a variety of Southwest Virginia residents with digital literacy, coding and consumer protection, and would provide devices for doing schoolwork to children living below the poverty line, among other actions. They also set up similar plans in Northern and Central Virginia locations with another $70,000. But next steps to execute these plans was going to require another $400,000 from these grants through the Digital Equity Act. And now the administration is saying no. Now, of the 3 Republican representatives that oversee parts that are being affected the most, only one responded, and that was Morgan Griffin of Salem, who basically said, in light of a $37 trillion debt burden on the country, I believe it is important to rein in wasteful spending of taxpayer dollars and promote fiscal responsibility. Now, mind you, we live in a digital age, okay? We have to have access to the internet. So imagine someone who is representing these people saying, yeah, that's waste. Your access to the internet is waste. And this is why this year's elections are so important. We have the opportunity to sue this administration because what he is actually doing is unlawful. Denying us access to something that has already been congressionally approved is unlawful, but Jason Miyares, our current Attorney General, refuses to do anything. And Governor Youngkin is condoning it, even though it is an unlawful act by this administration. Just a quick side note, if your representatives actually cared about the trillions in debt that we have, they wouldn't be cutting programs that affect our most vulnerable citizens to include a majority white rural Virginians to give tax breaks to the millionaires. They would just, I don't know, tax the millionaires and billionaires. Just a thought. Just a thought. Also, as always, elections in Virginia help make it possible. Thank you.
So let me ask you guys, what do you think about Bruce Springsteen's at all his concerts right now, bad mouthing the President of the United States and putting forth the left wing agenda? What's that all about? I mean, is he running for president? Is he even a politician? Or maybe he was part of that Diddy file that they found? I don't know. Maybe you guys can answer that.
Spiceman, you must be new here. Bruce Springsteen has been singing about America, the worker, all the things that make this country great, the good and the bad. It's always been chronicled in Bruce Springsteen's music. You probably know Bruce Springsteen's grandparents came over here from Italy, just like my dad who came here from Sicily. And whenever I listened to Bruce Springsteen's songs back in the 70s, we called him a working class hero. There weren't too many of them. And he's never betrayed the working class like so many Trump followers who've been tricked by propaganda to believe the lies, the dismantling of everything that makes America great in the interest of enriching just a few corporate oligarchs. This is not about Democrats and Republicans. It's not about left wing and right wing. This is about us losing our democracy. Wake up, Alberto. Don't be fooled by Fox News. We're losing our democracy and sliding into fascism, dictatorship, authoritarianism. Thank God there's someone like Bruce Springsteen with a platform willing to speak out and hopefully shake a few people out of their dreams. In case you missed it, they're threatening judges. They're judges that have to rule on these cases. They're sending pizzas to their house and to the homes of their children so that they recognize that somebody knows where they live. And if they make the wrong decision, what could happen to them? They're pulling people off the streets without due process, shoving them into vans and carrying them off without their families knowing where they're going. They're taking innocent people and without due process, sending them to a prison overseas. The whole Supreme Court, 9-0, told him he can't do it, and he's ignoring them because that's what a dictatorship is. This is not Republican or Democrat. We are losing our country, and it's the propaganda that is making people live in an alternate reality. And Bruce Springsteen is, as a friend, talking to you, trying to help you see what you're missing. Look, one of the first things he did is take apart the National Labor Review Board so people couldn't even start a union if they wanted to. He's burning books, censoring libraries, telling universities what to do, who they can hire, what kind of curriculum they can teach. He had a young woman deported for writing an editorial he didn't like. And now he's talking to dictators in the Middle East, people who mass execute people that are dissenters in their country, who have executed journalists, who subjugate women. And those are his new allies. And treating our Democratic allies like crap, threatening to annex Greenland, Canada, and who knows what else. That's not democracy. But if you love his racism and his sense of humor and his reality TV show propaganda enough to think that's America, well, that's not the America that any of us ever lived in before. That's not our Constitution. You're bowing down to a king, and we don't have a king. And that was Springsteen's message. Go and look at Springsteen's speech. Listen to it. He's simply reminding us of our core American values, values that transcend Republican and Democrat. And when those values come under threat from an authoritarian leader, It's an artist's duty to speak out if they have something to say and can help us to educate the people. Thank you for listening to this message, Alberto. I hope I got through.
Hi everyone, Jessica Anderson, running for the House of Delegates here in the 71st District of Virginia. And just recently, Cardinal News, which if you don't subscribe, you should, put out a really great article.
Okay, Trumpansies, what do you think of the big, beautiful bill that Trump and the Republicans are putting up right now? And what it does, I encourage you to go read it because Fox News, fuck that. What it does is, number one, it raises your taxes. Number two, it gives tax breaks to the billionaires, the 1%ers. Number three, it takes away Medicaid, your medical coverage. And you know what else it does not have? No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. It's almost like Trump does not give 1/5 of a half-eaten shit about you, but he really cares about the Billionaire Boys Club. Because while he's out right now in his grift tour with the Saudis and the Qataris and wherever he can grab money and bribes from, he's telling you your kids can go without as many dolls this year because his tariffs are going to raise prices on everything. So don't snivel bitch about that. You can do without a nice Christmas this year as long as he can get his $400 million jet. And don't snivel bitch about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security. You should have known you were not going to get this shit. Just like you're not going to get an $8,000 check from Doge. You ain't getting shit. What you're getting is your taxes being raised so that billionaires can pay less. Does that sound like they're representing you? Just a question. You know, you might want to think about that shit.
All right, guys, if you made it this far into the video, I will like you to comment done on the bottom, or give me a thumbs up emoji on the comments below. I really appreciate it if you made it this far into the video. All right, guys, let's talk about what's going on with this whole situation with the government and Republican and Trump in general. That he probably, or he took a gift from other country. Oh, he's going to take a gift from other country. Is a $400 million plane. What do you think about that? What kind of gift? Well, that's a really nice gift. You're getting a $400 million plane from somebody else. And he said that is a donation for the United States of America. But at the end of his turn, being a president, he's gonna take it and use it for his personal use. So basically, he's playing. So that is crazy. It would have been somebody else taking this gift. You know, everybody will be, you know, going crazy in United States. But because it's Trump, nobody pretty much is saying anything about that. And besides what else going on, you know, they are literally kidnapping people. They just go to their workplaces, and I saw a video yesterday at, I don't remember the state, but they went into this restaurant and literally they took people out of the restaurant, like workers from the restaurant, and they just throw inside the van and they just took it. Like one of the guys was saying here in one of the videos, literally they just kidnapping people, and family members, they don't know where are they taking them. So this is like kidnapping, literally. So that is crazy what's going on with this government. A lot of people are saying that the United States is becoming like a dictatorship, like other countries like Cuba, Venezuela, and some other countries that you have to do what the president says, otherwise they throw you in jail. So that is bananas. We don't have freedom of speech, it looks like, anymore. And this is just like the beginning, because like the old lady said, we'll still have a little over 3 years to go. And it is crazy. Throughout his campaign, he promised to lower grocery prices and everything else. And I haven't seen anything like that. Instead of going down, they are going up, because all this freaking tariff that he implemented, and prices, they're not going down. So people are angry. Even people that voted for him and his own Republican party, are pretty much turning against him. So it is crazy what's going on. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this whole situation? If you like content like this one, please consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. Ask you for a donation. Your donation will be a thumbs up to the video. Comments below, leave your comments below, and consider subscribing. And thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you. I really appreciate your support, and see you guys on the next one. Bye bye, and thank you.